And when, not if, price explodes, that will expose the price lie of the past 4 decades, along with all the consequences, legal and otherwise. What this means is that the prime perpetrators of the silver manipulation, the large Comex commercial shorts banks, will seek to extend the scam until the last possible moment. Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer, so now let's talk silver. Man, oh man, do I have an important and incredible video for you guys and gals today. You're going to want to stick all the way through this because we have something special. We have Ted Butler, one of the best to do it from Butler Research, covered lots of his articles before, talking about the Comex, price manipulation, even going into the supply, demand, the physical metal out there on the Comex and what this means for silver's price. Article titled Closer but Still No Cigar goes into some extremely important information that everyone needs to know about the Comex and the actual amount of silver out there, what this would mean if the Comex did get exposed or collapse, and what silver's true price really is. I mean, this is one of those articles that you gotta watch, you gotta read more than once. You might have to watch this video more than once because there's so much substance in this. I mean, there's so much substance in what he's saying that you can't just go through it once and truly process and grasp everything that he's talking about. Right, and that's just the reality, especially when you're covering something to such a such a large degree. We're talking about years and years and years of this Comex facade, this price manipulation, this entire situation, which is just completely, blatantly covering up, misguiding the reality of silver's price, and we just got to expose the truth. So I think Ted Butler does an incredible job of this. So please stick through this video, like this video, share this video. His article already has 643 shares. He posted this only a couple days ago. It seems like people are already trying to share this this extremely important article that he revealed. So anyways, yeah, if you did want to purchase some of that shiny silver yourself, I got y'all, the most respected precious metal dealer in the world, Miles Franklin. The website's going to be up soon, but for now, you can still purchase through them. And honestly, since they're going to be a hybrid, you can email them to place purchases or their website. Honestly, I think it still might be more beneficial to send an email and purchase that way, because that's how you build relationships. They get to know you. You could be a long-term buyer business relationship, and moving forwards as these companies have a harder and harder time finding silver, even begging their own customers to sell their silver back to them at record high premiums. It's just getting chaotic. See, a company like Miles Franklin, they got y'all. They can still fill the big orders. They have the connections. You can network with them, get to know them, get to know Andy. Andy gets to know you. That will take you a lot farther than just randomly buying from some anonymous site that doesn't care about you. With Andy, if anything gets messed up or something, he will personally talk to you and make things work and fix it. Where online, you're pretty much just left in the dust. They don't care about you. Andy does. See him on my channel every week. We just posted an amazing episode yesterday. But anyways, yeah, info@milesfranklin.com. Let him know Silver Slayer sent you. So let's look at this. If you like this article, if you like this video, then please like the video. I post daily videos. Make sure you subscribe. Let's jump into this article from Ted Butler titled Closer But Still No Cigar. So he goes on to say, it's remarkable to me how close we appear to be getting to near universal recognition that silver and gold, along with a host of other commodities, are priced based upon the activities of a relative handful of large paper traders on the Comex and other exchanges, and not on the workings of the real world actual supply and demand. Boom! I could already tell I'm going to love this article because this is what I've been talking about for so long. You guys know I hate that S word and that M word, speculation, manipulation. It should be based more off the fundamentals, supply and demand, not how much who thinks the price should be or the amount of dollars or these imaginary contracts. You know that every ounce of silver you hold in your bare hand, theoretically 250 other people own that same ounce on the Comex. They think they own your ounce. Online, it shows that they own your ounce. They don't own your ounce. If everyone on the Comex tried to turn those contracts in, it would get exposed. Boom. But majority of people never turn those contracts in. When you have a situation like the Hunt brothers that own up to 77% of the entire global silver supply and did try to turn those contracts in physical delivery, what happened? Boom, whole thing gets exposed. Government had to make a law on the spot called Silver Rule 7, basically banning silver. Nobody could buy silver. You had to sell it. You had to sell it back to the Federal Reserve, pushing silver to the highest price it's ever been still till this day. And if you're someone who's been watching my channel for the last 2-3 years, you know that most of my content has been based around the silver shortage, exposing the reality of it. So when you hear people like Ted Butler or even like David Morgan posted a video recently talking about the realistic or the reality that we're able to have enough silver to keep up with this new digital green era. You know, when you have people like Andy Sheckman that also has been exposing shortage for years now. That's what I love. When people don't go along, won't let the facade, the manipulation, the price suppression just fly under the radar like so many others are. It can't go on for too much longer. And that's why when I talk about manipulation, eventually, regardless of what spot price volatility is doing, silver's price will take on a life of its own, even beyond gold. Even beyond gold. Yes, silver will move with gold, but I do see a day and age, as we talk about silver being needed in everything from 5G EVs, gold won't flourish there where silver will. So then we will experience, he starts up here. So I'm convinced that once the critical level of the universal recognition is achieved and appears to be quite close, then we will experience the true free market price, which will be decidedly higher, particularly in silver. What I was literally just talking about, right? Once the manipulation goes away, which I just said I think will be, and he even thinks sooner than later, once the Comex collapses and the true price, the natural price of silver flourishes, gets exposed, that's when things will be done. When I talk about quote unquote silver price explosion, when I talk about triple digit silver, when I talk about the stars aligning and the perfect storm is here, that's what I'm talking about. When no matter who says what that 1 ounce coin is worth, what is irrelevant, because the coin's value is the 1 ounce inside of it, the silver. And when people see we need that silver, not just saying how much you could buy it for, spot price, yada, 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 that's when everything will come crashing down. Almost every day I see new evidence that the number of those questioning the Comex price discovery process silver is growing, sometimes even without the knowledge of those doing the questioning, fully realizing that they are waking up to a price manipulation that has existed for decades. Wait a minute, I can hear you say, how is it possible for anyone to question the Comex price discovery process without realizing they're doing just that? Well, let's stop real quick. Price suppression has been going on for decades. JP Morgan, and I've actually covered one of Ted Butler's articles before, where when he talks about manipulation and price suppression, he's going much deeper than just spoofing. He's going much deeper than just JP Morgan, placing false buy and sell orders on these exchanges, right? I mean, it's much more sinister than that as well. Regardless, though, silver price manipulation isn't a myth or a conspiracy. 3 of their employees are getting sent to prison, another one for racketeering. And this has been going on for decades. So anyways, he's talking about how someone could accidentally be admitting or waking up to this manipulation. He says, in fact, let me up the ante and provide an example of what I'm talking about as the anyone, in this case, being a quartet of seasoned metal professionals whose combined total experience measures more than a century. It comes in the form of an hour-long discussion put out this week by the LBMA on silver. The interest of full disclosure, I have no known relation to the analysts on the panel sharing my name. I'll summarize what was discussed, but here is the link. So he shares the link to this conference where the panel member talks about him or speaks his name, but he says it seems the discussion resulted from an earlier meeting arranged by the LBMA. And by the way, the LBMA and the Comex both admitted their vaults are near empty, right? The numbers don't lie. People could try to speculate and try to say, oh, they're misleading or whatever, or like the one lady said, there's an ample supply of silver. They could try to push that, but numbers don't lie, folks. And he says, with this meeting arranged by the LBMA, in which a fairly large number of analysts had offered a consensus price projection for the year involving a very modest increase in the price of gold, but a quite surprising expectation of a rather dramatic increase in the price of silver of some 50%. This is very much outside the normal bounds of typical consensus predictions, yeah. And the discussion in question, just linked, was intended to examine and reconcile the very bullish consensus of silver. Ted Butler's always been someone extremely bullish on silver, right? He's never held back his opinion. He's definitely one of those out there that definitely, talks about, he's not afraid to get criticism or cut back on him saying, silver is going to hit triple digits, But anyways, there was, in my opinion, an accurate and objective presentation of the actual world supply and demand fundamentals in silver, as would be expected, since one of the participants was the head of the research team of Metals Focus, and that provided the basis for the Silver Institute's recent bullish silver review. So data discussed included and rather shocking import of nearly 300 million ounces of silver this year by India, and that's doubling. India, that's double this year, a full 35% of total world mine production. What commodity could see that level of import demand with prices actually falling, not rising, right? It's insane to think. It's insane to think. And not only just looking at that, right? Look at throughout the years. I mean, we exceeded 1.21 billion ounces, and production for the last 7 years actually been falling a lot. Silver is a byproduct. It's getting harder and harder to find. Most silver's thrown away. Recycling isn't really, ramping up to much extent. You have solar panels increasing 15% this year alone. Imagine what what the EV demand is going to be in 5-10 years as every company is going electric. Imagine solar panels flooding. Imagine, all of this. Plus, there's very few primary silver mines, and then demand is rising, not only from the industrial sector, but also the investment sector. It's not realistic. It's not realistic. And then to add all that happening, and then to still say how this market prices are actually falling, not rising. If you were to put a blindfold on someone that doesn't know the silver's price, tell them all this and ask what the price of silver is, they would easily say triple, maybe quadruple digits. See, to the credit of the panel, there was no attempt to dispute the accuracy of the data for the first time in my memory. Serious questions were raised about the role of the Comex in the pricing of silver. For example, I was quite shocked to hear that the Comex was the tail that was wagging the dog. I should have put a copyright on that phrase and a new one on me. The Comex is like a speedboat, while the actual supply and demand is the supertanker. Still, there were obvious attempts to avoid the dreaded M-word manipulation. And yes, I mean, that's obvious. Trying to reconcile why the Comex managed money traders were big net sellers over the balance of this year in the face of extremely bullish physical demand, all manner of explanations were offered, revolving around outlooks for interest rates, the dollar, the economy, and yada yada yada. I wanted to scream at my computer screen, no. The managed money traders don't consider anything except price direction, right? And Andy talks about that, price misdirection, right? Price misdirection. And as those short are purely technicians, slaves to price movement. The commercial rig price lowers, and that's just like Pavlov's dogs, the managed money traders sell. It's not just the analysts on this panel that continue to confuse this issue, as I see many others which try to reconcile why the managed money traders got so heavily short COMEX silver futures this year. And even though the pattern over the years couldn't be clear, put prices lower and the managed money traders will sell and sell short, period. The only question is who is capable of putting prices lower to induce the managed money to sell short. And if you can't figure out the answer to that, which is commercials, then you must have missed all the many billions of dollars in fines and settlements paid by JP Morgan. I mean, yeah, he's talking about spoofing, which I mentioned before. When these banks, JP Morgan's a mascot, Dutch Bank, also Merrill Lynch, also have gotten caught and gone to court with this. But they place false buy or sell orders on these exchanges, cancel the order before it goes through. And that tricks everyone else, because then everyone else on that exchange sees the volume and sees all these contracts being bought up and yada yada yada, and then those people now are investing off of a facade, a fake market, a fake. It's all fake, because those people don't know that all those orders is gonna get canceled. The hardest part is, though, you're allowed to cancel orders. So how can you catch someone that's doing something when they're technically allowed to do it? You have to look for patterns. You have to go deeper. They even went into some of the WhatsApp messages between these guys, and it was disgusting to see how they're all joking about this like it's a big game to them. I'll never forget when I covered those messages that they talked about in court. But regardless, this is part of it, right? Spoof, and that's what he talks about right here. Another puzzle for me is how it is still assumed that the COMEX commercials are somehow legitimate hedgers. A legitimate hedger would be a mining company looking to lock in a price. But what mining company would look to lock in the level of silver prices seen recently? It's hard to dismiss the thought that the panel came to the quite obvious conclusion that something was messing with the true price discovery process in silver, and this is the closest I've seen yet that it was positioning on the COMEX in the true price discovery process, right? In years past, I thought the refusal of those in London to recognize the influence of the COMEX might have something to do with turf prejudice, New York versus London. But I didn't sense that in the presentation. However, coming closer than ever before and still not making the obvious conclusion that this is a COMEX price manipulation, plain and simple, makes me wonder why. Perhaps it's the realization that this has been going on for decades, and unfortunately that means missing the key element in pricing for all that time, right? I mean, think about that. If this has been going on, and honestly the start of it, I think the start of price manipulation, single-handedly devaluing silver, was FDR in 1930. FDR 1930. It goes way back then. You want a little history lesson? The gold to silver ratio back in ancient biblical times was 2.5 to 1. 2.5 parts silver equals 1 part gold. Back then, they thought silver was magic. Literally, they thought it was magical because it can purify water, right? It responds to other elements like nothing else. You drop milk or silver in milk, it keeps the milk fresh longer. It has antimicrobial properties. I mean, they thought silver was magic. And it is, basically, right? And then over the years, and by the way, silver is the most highly conductive metal for thermal conductivity, electricity, and even light sensitivity. Nothing even comes close to silver in terms of its usage. So anyways, let's go over time. That was the first ratio. Some even say it was 1 to 1, but that's the first documented ratio. 2.5 parts silver equals 1 part gold. 2.5 to 1. Then it was 8 to 1 for thousands of years, because that's a ratio that comes out of the ground. 8 to 1. Then it was 16 to 1 for the last, because we're talking about 5,000-6,000 years. The last 2,000-3,000 years leading up to 1930, it was 16 to 1. Until 1930, something happened. FDR gets in office, changes the gold to silver ratio. Now listen to my numbers clearly. From 16 to 1 to 75 to 1 overnight. FDR single-handedly devalued silver overnight, when he changed the ratio from 16 to 1 to 75 to 1, and it's never really gone back since then. Previous of that, it was always somewhat relative to the rate it comes out of the ground, but since then, we've seen ratios. Yes, there's been times when it goes very low again, but today a natural ratio is 75 to 1, or that's not natural, that's normal, right? We're not talking about 125 to 1 in March of 2020. We're talking about since, for decades now, it's around 70 to 1, 80 to 1. That's what you're usually going to see the gold to silver ratio sitting at. That's not normal. It actually should be flipped. Silver's 75 times more useful than gold. So why is gold 75 times more valuable than silver? Gold doesn't do anything. It sits around. Or perhaps, let me stop because I'm sure there's going to be some people, yeah, there's gold in technology. I used to scrap gold out of cell phones myself. I know gold is used some, but mostly it's used for coins and jewelry and bars, storage. It just sits around. Silver, yes, is also used in coins and stuff, but the majority of silver is used in technology, so that silver gets thrown away, never to be recycled or recovered. So the ratio, it comes out of the ground 7 or 8 to 1, but that ounce of gold that gets dug up is going to stay in circulation for centuries because it gets remelted back into more jewelry and coins, especially since it's so expensive. People are willing to go pawn jewelry out of their grandma's jewelry box or scrap or even take gold out of cell phones like I used to. Nobody's doing that with silver. They're not going to go find and pawn a $2.50 necklace. But also, since most of it's used in technology, it gets thrown away. So that 8 ounces of silver that gets dug up compared to the ounce of gold is thrown away within a couple of decades. Right? That's a big difference in this, especially when you talk about price discovery, when you talk about supply and demand, when you talk about the fundamentals moving forwards as we need more silver. A low supply, high demand pushes the price up. That's investing 101. Or perhaps, and he goes on to say, or perhaps there is some other impediment to the full recognition that silver and gold prices are manipulated on the Comex, like somehow reluctant to see something if it endangers future compensation. I'm not unmindful of such pressures in my now 37-year quest to expose the end of the Comex, so expose and end the Comex silver price manipulation involved leaving my long-term employment at the brokerage industry. No particular walk in the park. I can certainly understand and appreciate such pressures. Regardless, the growing recognition, fully admitted or not, that silver and gold prices are manipulated on the Comex is occurring on what seems to be a daily basis. It's hard to run a scam and a fraud of this magnitude and level of seriousness when too many see it. Add in the fact that these are supposedly closely regulated markets and those responsible for the regulation, including the CFTC, CME Group, SEC, DOJ, and others, including JP Morgan and BlackRock, sponsor of SLV, which have been reduced to virtual silence in the face of increasing evidence and allegations of price manipulation, the most serious of all market crime. Who could imagine such a set of circumstances? Then again, the perpetrators of the ongoing price manipulation, including some of those just mentioned, are not about to go down without a fight. And that's because the resultant fallout promises to be severe when the silver manipulation is ended. And when, not if, price explodes, that will expose the price lie of the past 4 decades, along with all the consequences, legal and otherwise. What this means is that the prime perpetrators of the silver manipulation, the large Comex commercial shorts banks, will seek to extend the scam until the last possible moment. Wow, that was poetry. That was art. That was art. That was beautiful. That's why I love Ted Butler, because he knows what he's talking about, but he knows how to word it and how to get the point across, and really how to show their thoughts, right? He knows how to step in their shoes and understand why they're doing it the way they are. It's not just saying, oh, these guys are criminals, or he's talking about their motives and why they want to do this, and how they could keep justifying this action time and time again. So he goes in to say, in fact, the signs of the big Comex commercials are continuing to dig in for now, seeking to cap and contain silver prices, which are evident in the last few COT reports. That is, the big commercials have been essentially the only sellers adding new short positions. These same big commercials also have yet again diffused any possible delivery fireworks in today's first delivery day on the big Comex contract for both silver and gold, succeeding in whittling down the open interest in December to the point where it should be, or it would be, hard to imagine a delivery blowup. But some type of delivery problem seems inevitable to me, which should silver prices remain suppressed even if its timing is unknowable. And that's because it's too easy to take delivery on the COMEX once the physical market starts to delay shipments to those who can't wait for physical delivery. Users and fabricators, investors, whether retail or wholesale, can and will wait for the physical receipt of the ordered and paid for metal. But users are much different, as any delay in the timely delivery of physical metal threatens their entire operations. I don't think the COMEX CME Group or the CFTC would tolerate and allow a big speculator from disrupting the delivery process with the demand for physical silver that would cause congestion and delivery problems. On the other hand, should the ongoing suppressed price of silver continue to encourage the demand and discourage the supply, it looks like what would break the COMEX would be delivery demands from industrial users faced with delivery delays. I don't know how the CME Group or anyone else could deal with that. Short of suspending the delivery feature on silver contracts, which I've already seen some happening already, which would in return, like the nickel exchange, what we saw, expose the 40-year silver con. After all, it is the delivery mechanism that gives the COMEX its legitimacy, right? And exactly. Like, this hits nail on head, and see why earlier I said you're going to have to watch this video more than once to really understand how much he's saying in all this, right? Because I could read a sentence, yet alone an article or a paragraph, and I can kind of, give some context and explain, but it's like line after line, paragraph after paragraph. He's exposing so much substance, important substance, that you might have to actually watch this video more than once if you want to catch on to the reality of the situation. It's easy to just, watch through once and say, oh, okay, I kind of understood what he's saying. But we're talking about some serious stuff, folks. And if you are someone who doesn't think that silver, quote unquote, could actually explode to the levels that Ted Butler and others talk about, well, just read this again and see the extent of how deep this manipulation actually goes. So this is a really long article, but maybe we'll highlight. Okay, so here let's do this. So this one, this paragraph, he just kind of talks about. Maybe hard for you and me to imagine the managed money traders going short again, being so dumb, yada yada. But let's look at this real quick. And by the way, I'll link this article if you guys want to read through it again. So there does still exist the possibility that enough of the big new commercial shorts will seek for the first time ever to buy on higher prices, courtesy of Raptor, smaller commercial long liquidation, and before the managed money traders position themselves long. But that's a very narrow window of opportunity and would necessarily involve an explosive rally. Thus, the key issue is the same as recounted consistently, namely, what the big concentrated COMEX commercial shorts do or don't do. But it won't be what the regulators do or don't do. It would be dictated by physical market conditions, right? It's the physical metal. It's the physical versus the digital. And once the facade of that, of the equality between those really gets exposed, that we don't have that much, that's when it all comes crashing down. The big crooked COMEX commercials have proven harder to kill than Count Dracula himself. But all it would take is continued extreme tightness in the physical silver market to be the wooden stake through the commercial's black hearts. And yes, that's happening. COMEX and the LBMA said this themselves. They admitted it, that they don't have much silver left. And then incorporate that with what I've been talking about, the digital era. I mean, it's not an if, but it's a when. So the one constant is that the price of silver has been manipulated and suppressed for decades on the COMEX at the hands of a select group of large banks, and like all manipulations, it must end someday. Also, like all price manipulations, and the end, when it comes in a flash, right? And like they say, 90% of the price spiking is in the last 10% of the timeline. But regardless, I made a video the other day talking about manipulation. I was telling people, it's hard to get into. I mean, imagine getting into silver knowing that the price is rigged, or finding out that the price is rigged and manipulated. But then I was telling people this cannot go on forever, and like Ted Butler says, it's going to come crashing down sooner than later. So someone who's saying, well, it sucks that silver is at this price, and if they're going to keep manipulating it, then what's the point? The point is that silver's true price will shine. It will. It's not an if, but it's a when. See, the one constant is that the price of silver has been manipulated and suppressed for decades on the Comex, hands of a select group of large banks, and like all manipulations, it must end someday. So the evidence of which becomes more visible daily, as does the recognition of what is occurring. Perhaps the big crooked Comex commercials and the regulatory protectors will succeed in prolonging the manipulation for a while longer. Then again, perhaps not. Ted Butler. Wow, what a great article. One of the best, if not the best article I've read in a while, especially since it goes along the lines of what I try to explain on my channel, or what I've been trying to explain. He hits the nail on the head time and time again. Great article. Like I said, you're going to have to watch this video more than once because there's just so much substance. Please like this video, share this video. People need to know this. People need to watch this video and understand what's going on. I'm not saying it for my sake. I'm saying it for the stackers' sake. And when I say subscribe, I'm not saying subscribe for my sake. I'm saying subscribe for your sake to get that daily dose of what's going on, right? I have so much happening on this channel, so many interviews, so many, so much talked about, especially with Andy Schectman and the BRICS nations and all that with the Belt Road Initiative. And you got to stay up to date. You can't just be blindly investing. It's called a silver stacking strategy for a reason, because we're strategizing, right? Gamblers throw money at the wall, hope it sticks with the odds against them. Investors make strategic decisions based off information. And we see this information and we understand what that's going to lead the price of silver once it gets exposed. So anyways, yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Like I said, if you want to buy some of this shiny silver, send an email to info@milesfranklin.com. Bottom left-hand corner of the screen, that's the email. Let them know Silver Slayer sent you. They got very good prices. They got your back. It's extremely important to build a business relationship with a company like that actually cares about you, that will take care of you. And it's almost like buying from a friend instead of buying from some random person online, right? So yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.